Welcome to Exploring the Ozarks, where we tell the history and stories of locations, places, and people that make up the area. Here's Matt finishing off his drink.
It's all about timing, you know.
There's always something new we have to point out every single time we start it. Yeah.
Hello, everybody. Welcome.
Hello there.
Well, hello there. This is Exploring the Ozarks. I am Matt Graham, as you just heard from our fabulous producer and co-host David Carr with Creative Endeavors, Springfield Studio One. We are sitting here with none other than Miss Kathryn Vicat. Thank you for being here, Kathryn Vicat. A local legend that you're about to find out.
In my own mind.
Yeah, well, in mine too.
We should have
right?
Hey, that's classy.
That's nice.
There we go. I like that.
But I have some history with Kathryn, and what we're going to talk about is history, funny enough.
Absolutely.
History.
Gosh, that was a good pun, wasn't it?
It was. That's beautiful.
It was punny. Very punny.
But we're going to talk about so many things today, so we're going to get right into it. David, tell about Patreon real quick.
Patreon. If you want to support us, you're not a business, don't have all that money to spend, but want to do $5, $10, $25 bucks a month, you can get on Patreon. You get access to exclusive content, and you help us continue to explore the Ozarks, because we don't charge anybody to come on here, but we do incur some costs as we are out producing these things.
Well, and the cool part about it is it's a way for people to get attached to what we're doing.
Yep.
Support what we're doing. This isn't free. We all charge people for our time, typically. Right now, we don't charge anybody, thank goodness, but we do have sponsors.
So you were going to charge me to be here?
Well, no, maybe you, but nobody else, actually. Funny enough.
We'll just charge you sound advice.
It's just the way our bank account works. But we do like to thank Jess Bowman with BIG Insurance, and we do have some other sponsorships that are coming in as well. But, you know, the cool part about Patreon is the fact that we leave this record button. As soon as we put, people in seats, we have that recording button going. So the stories that we hear outside of the show are actually sometimes better than what's on the show.
That's true.
And so you even hear some better stories if you get into that too. So we are here.
Don't delay. Go sign up.
Don't delay. That was good. Call now. Sunday. But we also are at Springfield Studio One, which is where you're seeing this podcast being filmed. There's a room, couple of different rooms that you've got.
I have tons of rooms.
Painstakingly been working on for so long, where you could film a sitcom if you'd like. A&E likes to come here and do things in there. So A&E is kind of a big deal. So you also have a stage set up where you can come in here with the band and you can play on a stage and bring people in here if you'd like to. Perform in general.
Or if you're a business and want to give a
used
speech.
To warming up, getting on stage, things like that, getting over your stage fright before you go on tour or whatever.
If you want to screen a film, you can do that here too.
You got a huge, big ass, it's a big ass screen is what it is.
It really is.
It's huge actually. You're from
with a good audio system.
The film world.
I need to tap into that.
I was going to say, maybe we need to set something up because we're here to talk about a few things. And before we got on here, we realized that we're going to be a little short on time. We have offered to have Miss Kathryn.
This is a two-part series.
At least two-part, I think, because you've got
maybe 3, maybe 10. We don't know.
Well, there's so many things I'm sitting here looking.
It'll be like the Band of Brothers TV show. We'll just make this like a 10-part.
We're the easiest.
We'll have Kathryn do the voiceover.
I can do that.
She's got the voice for it. Oh my gosh!
Let's hear it. Give an example.
Absolutely.
Just like that.
I can do it. Yeah.
Northeastern voice.
Yeah. Sure.
But everything I'm looking at here has led from one to the other, and it's only been a short amount of time, like since our radio show. When we first learned about what Footsteps Researchers is, really cool because my grandfather was in World War II. He was a underwater army welder, which
is super impressive,
right? So any of the ships that got damaged in Pearl Harbor or whatnot, they actually would take them to Alaska to get fixed because it was more out of the way. Russians weren't really on our asses at that point.
Right.
So that was the safest place for them to do all these repairs, and that was my grandfather that was fixing those ships before they sent them back out.
Was contributing to the war effort in Alaska. Nobody even knew.
Right? So, and couldn't tell anybody where he was or anything. But that's what he did, and then they would send him back out into combat, right? So, at least he made it through all of that, thank goodness.
Well, unlucky.
Kind of. He did suffer from mesothelioma and things like that afterwards from all the asbestos that they worked around and things like that. So there's so many repercussions of war.
Oh, my gosh.
And that's what we're going to talk about today. We're not going to get political. What we're going to do is talk about what Footsteps Researchers is, what leads you to Legacy Lost and Found, which is also super awesome.
We're going to give the audience a good taste of it.
Yes.
And we'll dig into it a lot more next time.
Yes. And since we're always talking about the film industry in this area, this to me, when I saw this pop up on Facebook because I follow you very heavily. I feel like I stalk you.
That's okay.
And I've always
The
thought
first step is admit.
You wouldn't be the only one. It's okay.
oh, good. I'm your biggest
Take a
fan
number.
then, right? Yeah.
Let me
And
do
then,
this again.
oh yeah, that's my
I
my
like that.
low voice.
Okay. Oh,
Thank
nice.
you. Yeah, you're welcome.
He did it one time, and I was like, I really got to put that in the board somehow.
And he caught it just when I did it, but my wife really likes the low voice, my Barry White. I was sick that day, actually. That's why it sounds so good. But then we also talk about this all ties together, and then it comes back to the Ozarks, right? We're exploring the Ozarks, so that's what we do is we explore things in the Ozarks. You guys filmed a full-fledged movie here, production movie. I'm going to butcher the name, so I'm going to let you introduce that part of it. What's the name of the movie you guys recently filmed here?
Reveille.
Reveille.
Yes.
Yeah. So I would have butchered that. The way it's spelled, okay?
Yes.
Whatever.
I know.
Is there a lot
It's
of
tricky.
reveille throughout the whole
Tricky.
entire movie?
Absolutely no. Absolutely not.
I meant the trumpet.
No.
It's
nope.
the irony of it all,
Okay.
right?
No music.
I didn't want people to think I was thinking like reveling in what's going on.
Oh,
like,
no.
that party.
Reveille, as in, when the
Just taps.
Is that
No,
going to be
no, no,
backwards
tap.
on Facebook, though?
I don't know.
Might be.
Bastards.
No.
I
We'll
think since
double
you use
check.
real cameras, I don't think that is.
Well, probably not. Who knows?
Oh, up higher. Oh, thanks. My producer over there is telling me higher. And I'll cover up the name and everything for you. But it's a super cool. The clips that I've seen of it is amazing. I mean, you guys have real actors, real ammunition,
Yeah, real ammo.
which never happens. But you guys needed it for sound. We're going to get into that too. I think where we need to start to end up at this spot in less than 30 minutes is Footsteps Researchers.
Yes.
So Footsteps Researchers, for those that do not know, I'm going to let Kathryn talk about what that is. Tell us what Footsteps Researchers is.
We specialize in World War II, basically. So, and pretty much anything that has to do with World War II and the research therein. So we started from Dr. Myra Miller. She was our founder. Didn't know anything about her father's World War II service and decided that she wanted to know. Well, she's one of those people, she dives into the deep end.
Right.
So she
Love it.
discovered that her father was in the 83rd Infantry Division, and now she's one of the 83rd's experts.
Holy smokes.
And she has
Hardcore dude
she
right there.
retraced all of his footsteps and physically went to Europe with her brothers.
You're talking from his going into the military,
Yes.
getting drafted,
Yep.
going to basic training.
She knew where he went to basic. She knew when he left. She knew where he landed and when he landed. And so she was able to go where he landed and then move through Europe with him, ultimately getting to the point where she laid in the foxhole where he was shot.
Holy smokes.
Because we can we can get down to the the geographical coordinates
Wow.
for an individual.
That's insane that you
And
can get
it's-
to
yeah.
the coordinates.
Oh, yeah.
How did you guys find that, though? I mean, did they have specific coordinates?
You have to
do they
go-
keep records of that,
They
of
do.
where someone specifically died? Wow.
Yeah. You have to go to the National Archives in St. Louis, and you have to collect a file, which is either their official military personnel file, which is an OMPF. There's some jargon.
Oh.
And then
We
there's
love jargon.
I
She
know.
really knows her stuff.
I do.
Yeah.
I do. They're all letters. And then there's a deceased person's file. So there's an IDPF, individual deceased persons.
Okay. Not IMDb.
Correct. No.
Okay.
And so I tracked that down, and then the next step is to go through the mourning reports because the military is fanatical about keeping records. So every single day, a clerk took a mourning report for every division, every battalion, every regiment. They all have a mourning report, and that mourning
Wow.
report dictates to me where they were, why they were there, when they were there, how long they were there, what happened when they were there. So we take all of that information and we paint a complete picture of someone's duty through World War II, beginning to end.
That's
Wow.
amazing.
You make it sound
Yeah.
so easy.
Well, no, it is. But it's life changing. I've been lucky. I've been on a couple of trips now,
Yeah.
and one lady was able to go to the hospital where her dad was triaged because it's still there.
Wow.
So
Was it a hospital or was it a church? What
it was actually a school. It was a boarding
There you
school
go.
that was taken for the hospital,
Right.
and that's what they used it for.
Amazing, because there's so many lives that were affected in that this goes back generations of people that are
yeah.
interested. You hear the stories growing up of your grandfather was in World War II, he died, he was, whatever it is. I think maybe our generation more than maybe some that are coming up, of course, but that still is going to be something that people know about because it was an atrocity, and it's such a big deal that we came in and we kicked some ass, right? What is it? I'm not even going to say what the shirt says, but World War II champs. times 2, or World War champs, I think is what it is.
World War.
But you know, when you guys, when you're doing this, I've seen the shirt. I thought about getting it.
I need it.
But you know, even just like what your shirt you're wearing, if you could turn to the camera, this one over here, this one, which one do you want?
Oh, this one right here's already got it.
This one right here's already got it. So let's talk about, that's the epitome of what you guys do, right? So next we'll lead into the legacy lost and found, but let's tell the story of this shirt that you have on, because you wore it for a reason, right?
Yes.
And this story right here is one of the most fascinating things, because I watched your trip to France when you guys were on one of your research. What do you call that? A research?
A footsteps tour.
Footsteps tour.
Yeah.
And you guys were searching for someone else, but you just so happen to have other stories to go along with this, and there's a lot of them. That's why there's going to be a multi-part series for this. Tell us more about the shirt.
So Christmas Day 1944, a 5-year-old boy by the name of Victor was in Belgium and witnessed a plane coming over the hill towards his home. And he noticed that it was smoking. Obviously, it was on fire.
Coming down.
And he saw 3 soldiers jump, and then he watched the plane go over the hill, slope down, and then crash in a pasture.
I remember that story now that you were telling on there.
Right.
Okay.
And the plane crashed in the pasture across from his home. And later that day, when the family was going to church, he saw the bodies of the soldiers that were in the plane wrapped in their parachutes.
Just going to church.
Just going to church. And he said, he promised, he said he can't not thank them. And so 77 years he committed to finding every single crew member, putting up a memorial. He purchased the land where the plane crash was as soon as he could and didn't touch it until the first one of the members could come back and actually see it before anybody else did. So
and left the plane crash there. Didn't touch anything on the property.
Yeah, he
Nobody
still hasn't
looted
touched
it. Thank
no,
goodness.
No, well, it's not marked. It's you wouldn't, if you didn't know there was a plane crash there, you wouldn't.
Because in the video that you showed, it almost looked like there was a road going through there now and all sorts of stuff. So the landscape had changed,
right?
But no one knew that there was a plane crash there.
Yeah,
okay.
And unless you were unless you were there in 1944, you wouldn't have known. And there's so many plane crashes,
right?
That was.
Right.
Even finding the name of the plane was tricky. We didn't know what the plane name was. We didn't know why it was named the way it was named, and so that was the only thing that helped us was a bolt.
A bolt, because it was numbers on it, right?
Yeah, there was one solitary bolt that we were able to find that was able to verify that it was the king size, which is the name of the plane.
Whoa.
Wow.
And that's how we were able to verify. And so finally this last winter, we took the last member. Eddie O'Rourke is the great nephew of Eddie O'Rourke.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, and he was the co-pilot. And he actually refused the bailout order, wanted to try to save his crew, ended up going down with the plane. And so Eddie was able to come and collect parts of the plane. He was able to find knobs. He was able to touch and sit and stand where his great uncle actually perished.
So the rest of the plane was pretty much demolished.
Yeah.
At that
and
point.
the Army comes in and they take away whatever they can. But
okay.
Anything that's left was protected.
Right. They're dragging it off, not picking up pieces at the time. So he was able to physically go out and feel the things that his grandfather tried to save lives and ended up causing lives to be lost. But that's the epitome of what you guys are doing. And that's where this whole thing, if you guys follow Kathryn Vicat or Footsteps Researchers, I would suggest going on Facebook, because the videos you have of your trip to France and going to all these locations. I mean, right before this, you told us that you guys even found the geographic location and coordinates of where Private Ryan fell. Yeah. And that to me is huge, because we've all probably seen that movie. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. But to think that, number one, it's real and you can attain to the knowledge to know where.
It's not an abstract thought. There's a
right. It's not just a movie at that point. It becomes an American serviceman.
Yeah. And that's, excuse me, in Europe, it's everywhere. It's absolutely everywhere.
That's what blew my mind about this, because there's markers everywhere you went. Yeah. There were markers of what happened there, what atrocities, because there were some mass murders and things like that that happened in these little villages, and they would make makeshift cemeteries and things like that. And those people were so respectable that they marked these places so people knew what happened there to not let it happen again almost. Yeah. And that to me is something that you don't hear in the history books. You don't hear it in history class. No. Most of the time you hear that the Germans kind of swept it under the rug. You don't talk about it much, but I've talked to German people who say that's absolutely not true in Germany, that they really do talk about it quite a bit, because they don't want it happening either.
Right. Mm-hmm. And they know how the world sees them, so to speak. And what's really amazing is we were able to go into a bunker, a World War II bunker that had not been touched. We were the first Americans actually to enter that bunker.
Wow.
Without a gun.
Holy smokes.
I need to say.
Key. Yeah.
And 10,000 people had to live in that bunker.
10,000?
Yeah, for 10 years, off and on for 10 years.
Oh my god!
While they rebuilt
How
the
big
city.
was the bunker?
It was 4 stories.
Uh-huh.
And when they built it, it was just supposed to be temporary. So there was no toilet facilities. There was no water facilities. There was no circulation.
I remember that. There was no electricity.
There was
right?
no electricity. So they had these giant hand pump generators because if a bomb hit, they'd have to pump the energy.
So literally people would be out there taking
Wow.
turns doing this.
pumping the generator.
And what's when they were going through it, some of that was still there as far as people would decorate their own section
They did.
of
They
the
painted
room.
the school.
And you're talking what, like a size of this table maybe is all the room you
families
had?
had a 6x6 space.
Like that's insane to me, but they made it their home.
You say 10,000 people like all at once?
Well,
or
no,
just
in
went
and
out?
out. In and out.
Yeah.
As they would
10-year
rebuild
period.
parts of the city,
Because
they
it
would
was
go back.
it was completely
Gotcha.
destroyed. So and
Wow.
the guide was telling me that when the Nazi youth were growing up, the parents were told, your kids need to be Nazis, and they do not coddle them, do not be gentle, do not be kind, make them tough. My mother, my mother's the first generation, German,
Right.
and to this day, my grandfather was raised among the Nazi youth, so. It was ingrained in him. Don't be affectionate. Don't be hugging. And so he
Don't show
wasn't. And
emotion.
so generationally, we're still paying for that.
Yeah,
We're still paying for that
affects
lack
a
of
lot.
action. It really
Yeah.
does. My mother really struggled with that
That's something
growing
that
up.
my
How could she
brother,
not, though?
Yeah.
my brother is his historian. He talks about World War II stuff, and one of the things he talks about is how all that PTSD that the World War II vets went through that wasn't recognized at that
Right.
time.
No,
That
they
affected
just
the whole
called it the
entire
1,000-yard stare,
Yeah, well, and it's that emotional detachment. I mean, you go through
Shell
something
shock,
that's
too.
that bad,
Yeah.
that just affects your families and affects just
Yeah.
that whole entire next
But you didn't
generation.
talk about it.
And it created a vacuum.
Right, which is why, that
vacuum.
emotional vacuum.
Yeah.
Good way to put it,
Yeah.
actually,
And
because
for my boss, the boys knew,
yeah.
but the girls didn't.
Yeah.
Oh,
Because they didn't want to,
because they're emotional or what?
Yeah, he didn't want to fill her pretty head with ugly stories.
Oh, well, I
Which
gotta say,
could get that.
Yeah, you want to protect
If I had
people.
gone through all
Yeah.
that, I would not want to share it at all either.
But the PTSD isn't just of the people that were in the war too. It was the French. A lot of any European at that that time probably has PTSD from everything that went on. Could you imagine?
so aware.
I think that's and I don't want to get too political or anything, but I feel like people in the United States were so insulated from the rest of the world that we don't have too many bad things happen. And I feel like that's why depression is so rampant, is because people create things to be depressed about.
Yeah.
And I know it's a real thing. I get it.
Oh, yeah,
I've been through a
absolutely.
lot of trauma myself, right? But I don't consider myself depressed because I tried to control myself.
Right.
But I do know that if some people I know that I take out and go hiking and stuff with, that we talk about things like that, or in any group setting or whatnot, and people create things to be depressed about because nothing bad's happened to them.
Right.
And to me, that is absolutely wild.
Yeah.
But getting back to Footsteps researchers, honoring the legacy of those who served and sacrificed by returning World War II artifacts that once were lost but have found their way home. That is Legacy Lost and Found, and Footsteps Researchers is a part of Legacy Lost and Found. On the back of this brochure, it talks about, just the pictures alone, I'm not going to read it all. Just the pictures alone are dog tags of people that fell in World War II. Let's talk about the great-great-grandchildren of Corporal Prentice Ball, who hold his pocket knife. Tell us how you guys got hooked up with Legacy Lost and Found and what you guys do together.
Well, we have an international team. So I've got 7 staff or employees, whatever you want to call them, in 5 different countries. And we are constantly going into battlefields because that's what we do. I can't take you to a battlefield unless I know about it.
Right.
And so my experts go into the field all the time. And if you can get permission, which is not always easy, you can use your metal detectors.
Right.
And frequently they'll find artifacts. The number of museums in World War II are crazy. The number of personal museums is even more crazy because people are constantly finding things and making little shrines in their homes or in their backyards.
Oh.
And
So you can't track stuff down. Yeah.
exactly. But if we have information, an ASM number, if we have a name, I can find them.
Wow.
And so the first thing we found was that pocket knife, and it had Private Prentice Ball on there. And we found his family, took it back, gave it to his grandkids, and they're holding the knife he used in World War II.
Wow. The next guy is Donald Joachim, who's holding
Joachim,
dog
yeah.
tags. Joachim.
Yeah. He had never seen those dog tags.
He
He was
those
the
dog
last
tags.
surviving son.
Okay, so that was his dad's.
Yes.
Unreal.
Right.
And his dad had fallen in battle.
Yeah, he did.
Unreal. So what you guys are doing, I mean, God, I'm just watching that clock.
Cheese and crackers.
I know, right? It goes by so fast. We say that
It
every
really
time.
does.
I'm going to give you an extra 5 minutes, though, David.
I have the power to
He's got
hit
the
the
mute
record
button and
button.
everything. But this all leads to what we talked about at the very beginning, which is the movie that you guys shot here locally. Say the name for me one more time.
Reveille.
Reveille is a film that was produced and shot here, and you can tell us a little bit more about where you guys shot this and how this all came about. Let's go for it.
Well, the first movie we did was the documentary for the plane crash.
Okay.
It's called The Ghost Plane of La Fosse, if you want to check it out. So we got pretty good at it and decided to try it again. So Dr. Miller hooked up with an individual who was doing research for this particular film, and they were talking about making the movie in L.A., and they had a pretty significant budget, and she said, that's crazy. There's a cave in the movie. We're the cave state. Why aren't we doing this in the Ozarks? And they didn't believe that we could do it for a third of the cost, which we did. And so they came out, and the people we found were amazing. The cave was absolutely perfect. The people who owned the cave were absolutely perfect. They, I walked up to them. I walked and knocked on their door, and I said, "Hi, my name's Kathryn, and I'm shooting a movie, and I wonder if I could look at your cave."
Right.
Now, that doesn't happen every day, right?
Yeah,
She was like, "Sure, come on in." And she invited me in, and we talked, and I said, "Would you mind?" And she's like, "Sure, let's go take a look at it." So she showed the cave, gave us the entire property, didn't
That is
charge us a
awesome.
penny.
Wow.
You know,
So how much of the film did you actually film on that
100%.
100%?
Wow.
100% of the film is filmed on location.
And it's supposed to look like France.
Yes, France in 1944
Right.
or 45, I think. Yeah.
So without giving a specific GPS coordinates, whereabouts was this that you all filmed?
Jeez. Oh, well, it's in Ozark.
Oh, it's in Ozark.
Yeah, Ozark. Yeah.
The city or
The town of
okay.
Ozark.
Don't
There's
get him started.
I would tell you the name of the.
He's an Ozark
I
kid.
think I
Oh,
know what cave you're talking
Yes,
about actually.
not
Okay.
the Ozarks.
All right.
Ozark.
I think I know which one you're talking about too.
Yes,
Yeah.
and there's a little cave down there that it used to be a wedding venue,
Yeah.
and it kind of closed down, and so they're redoing it, and they let us come in and just do whatever
That
we
is
want.
so
I didn't
cool.
realize you were
Yeah.
that local with it, though.
Yes,
like
we did
I thought it
everything.
was
That's extremely
somewhere.
local.
I was thinking Chadwick or something, which
we
isn't
did
far away, I
Ozark.
guess.
No.
But
We found a house in Ozark that we Airbnb'd it, And so the entire cast, everybody, we all stayed in the same house, and we kept the Germans separate from the Americans because the Germans only spoke German for the film. And,
okay, but they were all in character.
Yeah, and so some of them were Polish, some of them were German, but most of them were native speakers. One young man who was a German was actually Jewish. He's from Israel with his father, and this was a real discussion. A real discussion that the 16-year-old boy was going to play a German soldier, speak German,
And be Jewish.
and be Jewish, and lose family in the Holocaust. They lost family in the Holocaust, so it was an important thing for him to do.
Oh my
for himself,
gosh.
and his father,
Absolutely.
let him do it, and
That's
so.
Interesting story.
That's a legacy type
There-
thing, though.
there
I mean, that's like
absolutely
full
is.
circle.
Yeah,
I mean,
and
the stuff you never thought would happen.
Yeah, and this 16-year-old is impacted by World War II.
Right.
So if you think that it's over, it's not.
It's not.
It's
And that's
not.
what was so clear about you walking through France was, and like I said again, it's the people remember it because it is oral history to them, and they teach it to their kids.
Oh, yeah.
Very literally, as to you can't let this happen in the world.
Well,
so
when
don't.
you're stuck with the family of 8 in a basement for 8 days with nothing but a bucket and a sack of potatoes, waiting to be liberated, that liberation is, you don't forget it.
No.
And I know a family that happened to. So, that's not a small thing.
No.
And they don't forget that. And I know I've got time. There's this really
You're fine.
great story.
Yeah.
And we're going through this town. We're going next to this little town called
Guard
Manila.
it.
I know, right?
Go ahead.
And I saw this really beautiful building, and on this building had like a little bent bar in the basement window, and I thought, well, that's really strange. I said, that's an important building. Why is that bar bent? And Joey, he's my guy in the Netherlands. He's my expert. He's like, they're never going to fix that bar. And I said, well, how come? And he said, because in 1944, this village had to evacuate again, twice. And during the second evacuation, it was just chaos, and they knew the Germans were going to be coming.
Right.
And so a family actually saw a tank approach, and they ran into that building into the basement. The tank commander saw them and fired at them, but misjudged the trajectory of the road. So the mortar bounced off the road, hit that metal bar, ping-ponged around that basement, and stopped in a root cellar, not detonating.
Whoa.
So the family was able to escape.
Whoa.
They said that's not just a bar.
Right.
And that family drives by that building all the time. And they know
Wow.
that's not just, that bar saved their entire family.
Unreal.
So it's not just a
Dang.
bar.
That is so cool.
That was a good one to end on.
I love
Yeah.
that.
I'm just
Stop
gonna
it.
say. I was gonna say.
I just want to know a little bit more.
Okay.
So there's a lot of things like that in France, though, in your travels, though,
everywhere,
that there
yes.
were just reminders, and I guess that's a lucky omen right there that
Yeah.
your whole family got saved by a bar. But this movie that you guys filmed, tell us, give us a general rundown before we end of who is it about,
Well, it's actually based on historical events that we were actually able to research.
which is the most important part.
Yes,
of it to me.
everything is 100% accurate. Factually accurate
Right.
in the whole film, and it really talks about a group of soldiers that are faced with life and death in a way that they had never expected to
Sure.
discover life.
So
and
does it
death.
follow them from boot camp on? Like
It
you
does
guys
not.
do,
It's
or-
just it's a short snapshot. It's about 2 or 3 days, I want to say.
Oh.
In the course of the war and their experience during the war, and the trauma and the magnitude of the experiences that they have, and
Right.
how it changes them, and how war changes you, and how hellacious war is.
Oh man. Well,
Because no one wins.
No one wins. But is it a certain company that you guys follow?
We do. I can't think of the name of it off the top of my head, though. I'd
You're
have to
fine.
think.
No, you're fine. I don't think it's really in here yet, but it's a small group.
Yeah.
It seems like, right? So, but the pitch deck at the very beginning is a new film tackling the moral dilemmas of war. To me, that's a loaded statement in itself that we definitely want to explore more about this because I love history, number one, but World War II is something I'm personally kind of attached to, right?
Yeah.
But, seeing that I know other people that had family members that were on the front lines or did go on, into D-Day and things like that. We were talking before you got here about a D-Day reenactment down in Oklahoma that we want to go to that they do with paintball guns. But they actually have the old duck boats that go up onto, they start in a lake.
Just go to France in December,
I want to so bad.
and you are
bad.
immersed in World War II.
My
and
birthday is D-Day. My birthday's June
You
6th.
need to plan. We need to plan a trip for you.
Let's do it.
Let's plan a trip.
I do want to go so bad.
That would be great, and take everybody with you and follow
my
his footsteps.
gosh,
and
yeah.
It can be an Exploring the Ozarks exclusive.
That's right.
Exploring the Ozarks, but everywhere else.
Go to the Europe
Right.
with those. Yeah.
But I hate to stop us, but we actually have somebody
We
else
are
coming
going
in
to
now
have
too.
you
but,
back. Though,
if
quickly.
you don't mind, I think
Yeah.
we need to have you back more than just once too. The stories that you have, I think we could try to pull from Facebook to at least kind of boost what you did, because I love what you did, and I think that the storytelling and the emotion that's in it, because you're not like an emotional person, but when you're over there in France, it's hard not to be.
It's incredibly hard not
when
to
you're
be.
walking past these cemeteries and there's American soldiers, and they kind of treat us kind of like rock stars
Absolutely.
at the time.
Absolutely.
Because we were there to help them out, so they helped us out as much as they could.
And that's
Yeah.
why every single soldier buried in Europe has a caretaker. Every single one.
How do they assign
Wow.
somebody to that? Is it
The
a volunteer?
well, they do. They all volunteer for it. When the cemeteries were first established, they were basic. They were not anything like what they were now. They were basically sticks and markers and that kind of thing. So the villagers would come in and take care of the graves, and they'd paint the stump markers, and they'd make sure there were flowers and there were flags, and they have been doing that ever since the end of the war, since 1946.
That's so important.
Yeah, so every single soldier is never alone.
Wow.
And one of the gentlemen actually wears his dog tags, and he keeps the soldier's photo in his house, and met his parents or his grandparents.
Oh my
And he
gosh!
said, "I want you to know that your boy's never alone."
Wow, that's important.
Because
for the
he was
family,
18
though.
when he passed away, and he said,
barely lived.
Yeah,
you know?
absolutely.
And then you go overseas, and that's what happens. But
that's the least they can do.
and that's the moral dilemmas of war right there.
Absolutely.
But it's almost kind of flattering as an American to hear that someone does that, because I almost think that in America, I almost feel like we probably wouldn't do that for people.
I wonder. I really wonder.
And it's kind of sad to think about. But, we do have a lot of nonprofits and people like that around. We do have big hearts, especially in this area, which is why we love our show and we love the guests that we have. But those types of things we love talking about. So you're going to be here more often. Every Wednesday, if you want. But I want to get more into this story of the movie. I want to get more in the story of Footsteps researchers and the Lost and Found. Legacy Lost and
Specifically,
Found.
definitely talk about people from the Ozarks that did that.
I would love.
See, that's
to
kind
hear
of what
we
I
can
was.
focus on those stories of people that were in
I
World
would
War II
love to
from the
hear
area.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, get some examples for us of people that may have come from this
Absolutely.
area that
Yeah.
maybe find out.
I
where
do
they
know
went.
that Channing Tatum's great uncle died on D-Day on the beach.
Really? We should get him
Isn't
on
that
your
crazy?
show.
I know. Yeah, I know.
Magic Mike in house, you know.
I know. Exactly.
Yeah, she's like
I know.
not selfishly
We're close, yeah.
at all to have him here, but Kathryn, thank you so much for
Thank
being
you,
here.
Guy. You're so
and
thoughtful.
we're gonna
Thank you.
have you back, and we're gonna make
Absolutely.
this. I mean, we've got a guy by the name of John Delatorre. Am I saying that right, or do I need to roll an R in there?
Farmer De La Torre. but,
Okay.
you know.
He is our local historian type of guy, and he goes and has, conversations with local Ozarkians and, just wants to hear their stories. But I think he would be someone good to bring in on this too. He's about to start doing some specials for us.
Yeah.
But I think he's a good researcher too. So maybe you guys can work in conjunction, and he's
Absolutely.
got a big heart too. So
Yeah.
But thank you again, Kathryn Vicat, for being
Thank
here. I know it goes
you.
fast and we say it every time, but it is fun
I'm
for
a
us to do.
talker. What can I say?
But there's a lot to uncover on this, and we appreciate you being a part of it. Everybody else, David, thank you as well for
Yes.
doing what you
and
do.
have them reach if they have questions. Check us out on Facebook. Let me know.
That's what I was going to say. Where do we find you guys?
Yeah, just go to our Facebook page or www.footstepsresearchers, both plural.com.
There you go. And then follow Kathryn like I do, so I'm not alone and feel like a stalker. Again, everybody else, please stalk
Hey, man,
her.
take a number.
Yeah,
Take a number.
there you go. But everybody else, keep exploring the Ozarks.
Yes. Thanks so much.
Thanks again for listening to Exploring the Ozarks. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe to our social media channels to help us keep exploring the stories of the Ozarks. If you're looking for more ways to support our show, we have sponsorships for businesses and Patreon for individual supporters. Check the links in the description for more details. Thanks for your support, and keep exploring the Ozarks.